Welcome back, and joining us for a look at the day's market moving news is Cremen from Adviceworx. Thank you so much for your time, Caroline. Pretty interesting moves that we are seeing there across those stock market boards, particularly with the JSE and the divergence that we're seeing with the different sectors. So, of course, really highlighted there is the gains that have been experienced by Naspers and Process throughout the day there, but also the beating that the resources got today. Talk to me about what you've made of trading today.
Okay, so I think last week, there were wobbles in a lot of sectors, stemming from worries overseas about inflation rates, interest rates, particularly in the US, and we saw the tech stocks come off there quite dramatically. I think people had a little bit of a breather over the weekend. The oil price is down. World War III is not broken out yet. So now we're really focusing on company-specific news. The tech stocks we saw up, of course, Naspers Process, and that's because Tencent is releasing a new game. A game has been in development for 7 years, and it's going to be a money spinner, according to Tencent, and they've released it earlier than expected. So I think that's the reason for the bump.
All right.
Commodities, yeah, I think we've got a lot of earnings out. We've had commodities have a relatively good run. So the flight to commodities kind of cooling just for today.
Okay, yeah, and you're right. It's just for today because they've had a really fantastic run over the last while. And of course, talking about earnings, we'll be looking out for those magnificent 7 earnings out this week. Of course, let's taking a look at some of the numbers that have come out of some of the JSE companies. South32 coming out with its quarterly report. I guess, obviously, as expected, it's a diversified miner. So, of course, you will have a diversified set of production numbers when you look at the different commodities, but saying that they are keeping their guidance unchanged except for Australia manganese. I did actually see, as much as the resources have been hit, South32's share price was actually up today. Was that all the numbers that came out of that report?
Look, I think surprisingly, okay, it was flat. So I think that probably surprised on the upside. Just remember that these earnings do not incorporate the recent increases in commodity prices.
Yeah.
So, there was a Cyclone Megan, or Hurricane Megan, what they call it, and you had poor commodity prices in the period leading up to this. So when you have a miner like this and they come out flat after this type of these types of conditions, I think we'll take it. I think what is interesting is that management guidance was for it to be flat. So, and they do talk a little bit about economic conditions. So it kind of seems as if they're kind of leaning on the downside. So maybe they're not seeing this commodity run being as sustainable as I think the rest of the market thinks it is going to be, or maybe they're just being cautious and they don't want to just raise expectations and they get hammered again in 6 months when they don't hit expectations.
Yeah, well, another commodity commodity counter that came out with numbers today, a quarterly report as well, is Merafe. But actually, we did see that share price taking a knock there, down about 3%. Of course, the company is saying that the ferrochrome production slid 26% compared to the previous third quarter. Not a lot of color there. What do you make of what they have reported today?
So I think just from Morocco's point of view is that they shut down some production. I don't remember seeing any kind of updates from them during this quarter that they're shutting down production. So maybe a little bit of transparency would have been nice there. That said, not too different from South32, commodity prices, ferrochrome prices, because the economic situation, worries about China, they were down. So we'll see how that carries on into the remainder of the year.
All right. CashBuild. They also came out with a third quarter update saying that revenue was up 3%, transactions through the till was up 1%. I mean, just looking at that growth, still lackluster, but no surprises really.
Lackluster, but it's again in this type of market when the consumer is getting so constrained, I'll take it. CashBuild has always been towards that low middle income sector. I've always liked the company. I've always liked the sector. I thought it was quite resilient. So I think it's kind of showing that it is actually resilient. It's not so flat. People don't have money to spend. Inflation is biting. So the fact that they can actually kind of eke out a slight revenue gain, again, one of those things, I have low expectations in this market for a lot of South African incorporated shares. So when I see flat, I'm relatively happy.
Okay. No, I hear you. I hear you. It really is quite a tough environment. Well, let's get into your stock pick for today, Caroline. What will it be?
So I'm going overseas, and we saw that huge big rout in the semiconductor sector last year. So, and I've called this company before, and it's ASML. It is a Dutch company. It is the company that makes the machines that make semiconductors. Now, it's expensive. It's been difficult to buy into, but this company's a monopoly. It's got about a 50% margin. And semiconductors, despite the fact that that sector is extremely cyclical, it is the way of the future. So people who have missed picking this monolith up and putting it into their overseas portfolios, you're possibly going to get the opportunity to do it now. I don't think it's ever going to be cheap, but this is one monopoly that I really do think everybody should have in their portfolio.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your insights today, Caroline, on what has moved investors' money today. That was Caroline Cremen from Adviceworx.